Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to another episode of Metamorphosis. Today, I am going to tell you just some interesting lessons from Kalari, of course. But these came from somebody came up to me in class the other day after class and just said, when does it get easier? Like, when will this feel better? When will this be easier? And I had to think about it. And then I honestly just said, and I'd been reflecting on this myself during that same class actually, which is a funny coincidence. And I just had to say, like, it actually doesn't get easier. You just get stronger. And I was thinking about this. I was talking to a friend the other day about a podcast episode he had watched with Ido Portal, who also has had his own movement practice that he has done every single day for the last maybe 20 years or something like that. And the interviewer asked him, like, you've been doing this for so long and doing this specific practice of yours for so long, like, isn't it just easy now? And he was like, no, of course it's not easy now. It's difficult every day. And if it wasn't difficult, then what would the point of it be? You know, what benefit would I be getting? What would be the point of doing something that was easy? And I'd been having this same reflection my own self in my own practice, because I was sometimes just struggling in the classes. Do you know what I mean? Like, just tired, like a sore body, feeling stiff, feeling injuries sometimes. I'm just thinking like, wow, this is so difficult. This is hard. And then just thinking like, this is like as hard as my first classes of Kalari, but I just know how to do it better now. But it still feels challenging. It's still difficult in my body. And from the outside, if you were watching me and I could like somehow materialize the version of me 2 years ago that had just first discovered Kalari and we practiced next to each other, it would be unrecognizable. Do you know what I mean? Like, my practice then, which it took me a long time to learn. I'm not that good at learning like choreographed movement patterns and this kind of thing, I would say. I didn't really have any of these. Had a good level of general fitness, I would say, but not these kind of Kalari specific movements. And I wasn't particularly elegant or graceful, I would say. I still don't think I'm that elegant or graceful. But the two people practicing, myself and that past version of me, is unrecognizable. But the feeling of exertion of each of those people would be very similar, I would say, in the classes. Like, still trying very hard, still exerting a lot of energy, still putting a lot of output. So I've just been like pondering about this for the last little while, and I'm just going to just share with you my thoughts basically from 2 points of view of this. And I will say this is consistent, has been for me consistent across the board in all other sports. And the only other sport that I've really been into with this level of passion and intensity has been running. And running was the same. Do you know what I mean? Like, your 100th run or your 1000th run or whatever it is, your first half marathon is probably as difficult as your first 3K run, like the first ever time you go and do a 3K off the bat. Do you know what I mean? They're both extremely difficult. They're both hard. You're struggling in both of them. The sensation itself of exertion in the run feels the same. But of course, your running is different. Of course, you can run much, much, much further. You can run 21Ks instead of just 3. You can run faster. Your form is better. You feel more elegant. You feel more graceful. But it's still difficult. It's still difficult. So there's two things that I find really fascinating about this. Actually, it's probably more than 2 things. The first thing is just like, again, and I have a lot of podcast episodes about this, just embracing the fact that difficulty and challenge is a good thing. It is good mentally to be challenged. It is good physically to be challenged. And there's no point in just reaching a plateau and staying at the plateau, because there is not really any such thing as a plateau in nature. Things are either growing or they're decaying. So you're either growing or you're decaying. Do you know what I mean? And we get to a point where you reach a certain level of proficiency, and then you've got options. You know, you can get faster. You can get more meticulous with your movements, much more precise. You can be better balanced. You can be much stronger. You can be much more fluid in your movements. You can be much more present with those movements. You can feel different parts of your body in the movements. You can breathe in specific ways in those movements. And there's always like levels and levels and levels and levels above, and increments and increments and increments in each of those levels above, stacked on top of each other, like meshed together. Do you know what I mean? And of course, you want to be always getting better. You always want to be improving. You always want to be like a little bit better in the thing that you're doing today than you were yesterday. And this could be anything. This could be like playing the piano. This could be cooking. This could literally just be walking. It could be, of course, any kind of sport that you're doing. It could be in your meditation. It could be something new that you're learning, speaking a new language or something like this. But you always want to be in this mindset of not being bothered that something is difficult, not being too upset that you are challenged and that you're having to exert energy. Because ultimately, like, having something that you want to exert energy on means that you have something meaningful in your life. It means that you have a passion. It means that you have something important, something valuable, something worth generating energy for so that you can spend it on that thing. Anybody that has ever gotten really into a sport will understand this, because there's a very high barrier to entry for a lot of sports. Running in particular, I would say as well, because it just takes quite some time before running becomes enjoyable. Sometimes a very long time. And in that phase where it's not enjoyable, it just is unfathomable that people do it for fun. It just like doesn't make any sense. You just think like, why on earth would anybody bother doing this? You know, and everybody talks about a runner's high or the endorphins, this and that. And the first month, at least, probably 6 weeks, maybe 2-3 months after starting running, and you're just like, is this some kind of scam? Like, obviously there's no runner's high. This just feels awful. I'm tired, my legs hurt, I'm exhausted, I don't feel good, I don't feel like running, I'm not excited about it. And then one day it happens. One day you persistent enough to like break through that, and then you get it. And then you become like completely obsessed, completely addicted. So I think it's such a beautiful thing to like have things in your life that you are willing to struggle through that thing. You know, you're willing to just stick with it because you love it enough to let it be difficult. You love it enough to be okay with being uncomfortable. You love it enough to want to get better even though it doesn't feel good in the moment, you know? But you can just almost soothe yourself in the moment and be like, it's okay, you know, it's going to be worth it. You're going to get better. You're going to get stronger. You're getting stronger. Look, you're going to enjoy this later. Imagine how much better you're going to be like in 1 month, in 2 months, in 2 years. So that's a really beautiful part, I think, of just things being difficult, things being challenging, having to work hard for things. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is, it's from this book called The Book of Five Rings, which is written by a Japanese samurai expert. He was like an undefeated duelist. And he's a sword fighting samurai, obviously. So the book is about his own methodology, I guess, of being a samurai and being undefeated, and his own school of warfare or thought on this, how to approach being a warrior, being a sword fighter. And it's just so refreshingly blunt and brilliant. It's very, very, very small. It's maybe only like 50 pages long. If anyone wants to read it, send me a message and I will send it to you. It's so good. And it's so just brilliant because it almost is just the complete opposite of everything we're constantly fed now in this kind of comfort culture where we're trying to expend as little energy as possible. We're trying to do as little thinking as possible. We're outsourcing all of our movement and thinking to AI and other forms of like packaged things that stop us from doing any kind of extra movement or extra preparation or expending any kind of extra energy at all. And that mode of living or way of thinking or way of society is extremely magnetic, I would say. It has extreme gravity, and it costs us energy to not be sucked into that. You know what I mean? It costs energy to make your own meals at home instead of just ordering meals on Uber Eats or getting takeaway or all of those different things. But the benefit of the benefit of cooking your own food is miles and miles and miles ahead of eating any other kind of food. Do you know what I mean? So this whole book basically is just an extremely blunt and refreshing, hilarious, and obviously true because he was undefeated, way of looking at life. And basically he just says a lot of very funny things in a very dry way. But one of the things he says is like, he's like, some people say that it's very difficult to train with a longsword because the longsword is very heavy. And he was like, my suggestion is that you actually then just train with a longsword in each hand, so that then when you train just with a longsword, it becomes much easier. And I read this slide like over and over and over again. And I just thought, that's so just brilliant. Do you know what I mean? Like, train so that it's harder, so that when you actually have to do the thing, it's easy. And it makes so much sense, but it's so counterintuitive in our life where we want things to be comfortable and everything is obsessed with comfort and everything is obsessed with not challenging us too much or not costing us too much energy. And I just thought that's like so refreshing to think of it in that way. And then I thought, how can I apply this to my own life? Like, how can I do this more? How can I practice this more? Which of course is like, I do it in very, very small ways. There's always a selection of short sticks that we have for short sticks training. Some of them are thinner and longer and lighter. Some of them are much thicker and very heavy. So I always try and take the heavy one just to make sure that I'm getting stronger. I always try to do all of the postures properly, like go fully into all of the postures, make sure that I'm like not straining, that's not the right word, but like challenging myself in all of the postures. Because there's a way to do things, and there's in a chill way, but like kind of look like you're doing it. And there's a way to actually be in the thing, actually struggling and actually making some sort of meaningful change. Because of course, change doesn't just happen because we want it to change. Change happens because we exert energy and effort against something to make it change. So ideally, I would also love to be doing a lot more training as well outside of training, so that I can be better inside of training, but I'm not at that energy level yet. But it's definitely something that's like constantly in the back of my mind of like, yeah, you should be, train. If it's hard to train with one sword, train with two swords, and it'll be easy to train with one sword. Along that exact same train of thought, I was thinking this because I've been just discussing lots of different kalari things with Samir. We're obviously both doing the diploma together. So I've been doing kalari for over 2 years now. He's been doing it for maybe 6 months on and off, or almost a year on and off. And so we both have like a level of familiarity with the practice. We've both seen ourselves grow quite a lot in different ways. We've both struggled with the same kind of things. We have different understandings of the different postures. We both can watch ourselves, like each other and other people in the class, and be aware of like different things and be aware of our breathing patterns in the class and all these kind of things. So it's so nice to like discuss these things afterwards and have this kind of like back and forward feedback. But there's been so many things, so many epiphanies that each of us have of like, oh, this thing that we thought was just completely irrelevant and just a random movement, actually, of course, we've been doing that all of this time because it's in this weapon sequence. It's in this short stick sequence. Of course you do this basic posture like this, and of course you bring your leg up that way and do that thing, because actually in the advanced sequence that you didn't know at that moment, of course you do that because the next thing is this. Of course you have to do this thing because then that. And I just thought how funny that like 2 years of my life, which is more or less spent just repeating these same basics over and over again, and like just trusting that they would lead somewhere, do you know what I mean? And like not necessarily spending too much time worried about like why I was doing a specific movement or why this sequence of movements together, but just going along with it, and then getting to a point where it's, and I'm sure this will keep happening, and like now I think that I know a lot of things, and I'm sure even in 2 weeks time there'll be like 50 new things that I realize in that time of like, oh, of course this, of course that, of course you have to be doing, of course you have to have your balance in this way, of course you have to be focusing on that thing. And I just thought like, and the other thing is I had to have practiced those things that many times over that 2 years to even be able to like have this thought and notice that thing and be like, oh, that's that thing that now, because I can do that, because I had to do that thousands of times, now I can do it like this with this, and then it leads to this outcome, which is, I don't know, whatever it is, like something an advanced movement, a fighting movement, a weapon movement, like something very delightful and exciting. And I just thought, how often in our lives are we just getting too bogged down with not wanting to repeat the same things over and over again, and getting too tangled up in like shiny object syndrome and going around and like getting distracted by this thing and the other thing and that kind of thing. But actually life has just been wanting to say to us, like, no, like, I'm making you stronger in this one thing so that it's part of an advanced sequence later on, so that you've got this skill. But why do you just keep going and doing this thing, that thing, that thing? I just want you to repeat this thing enough times so that you can get it in your muscle memory, in your body, in your intuition, in your reflex, because I'm leading you to something better. You're not wise enough to see it yet. I'm probably showing you, but it hasn't clicked yet. And I just thought, like, now reflecting on this as well in my own life, there's so many things where it's been like moments of my life that were really uncomfortable, maybe like a job that I really didn't want to do, but I had to do to like make money, or a situation that I was in, or a living situation, or a relationship, or any of these things. And now looking back, I'm like, of course I had to be in that situation and do that thing and learn that thing and learn that skill, or learn that thing about myself, or learn to communicate in this way, or learn how to understand myself better, or learn to actually stick to something long enough, learn to do something uncomfortable repeatedly, learn to sit still in meditation without fidgeting, learn to focus long enough to chant mantras without getting distracted. And then those things just eventually they add up. And then you find yourself in situations, or a different relationship, or a different situation, a different opportunity comes up where you're like, oh, actually, that's so lucky, like quote unquote, because I've actually just learned all of those skills in my life in other areas. I just was bored of it. I didn't know that it was going to be meaningful. I didn't necessarily think that it was going to be worthwhile. So I don't know if I'm exactly articulating this how it is in my mind, but I think I've had so many epiphanies of this in the kalari practice, of like, you don't necessarily have to know why you're doing what you're doing. And you're not necessarily going to see results today or tomorrow or the next day. But you can trust that you are stacking enough micro improvements that you are getting stronger, you are getting more flexible, you are getting more resilient, you are getting more focused, you are getting more clarity, you are getting more energy. And I'm talking about my kalari practice, but the same thing, I could speak about exactly the same thing with my meditation practice, for example. You can sit for longer, you're more focused, you're not fidgeting, you can feel more of yourself, you can feel more of your being, you can actually sustain concentration on something. You are becoming more disciplined, you are becoming more resilient, you are becoming more well-resourced. It could be literally anything, any skill that you're learning. And so at some moment, all of those things add up to something in life where you just think, thank goodness I did that thing those thousands of times, because now I know how to do this thing. I know how to do the advanced sequence. Now I can start sparring with weapons, which is so fun. I love it so much. And it's like, I can only do that now because I've been doing all of these other things for all of these years. And I didn't know I was going to end up doing the diploma. I didn't know that I was going to start long stick training, short stick training, sparring with people, and loving it so much. So all of this just to say, and this of course comes back to the concept of metamorphosis and the cocoon. That's why we need these practices in our life where we are just incrementally improving at these very specific things. What is the thing that you're showing up to every day that's making you just 2% more resilient, just 2% more focused, 2% more able to just sit still and not flinch, 2% more able to just be slightly more patient, 2% more able to just have a little bit more energy, just 2% more able to be a little bit more flexible, like in your body or in your life, 2% stronger, 2% more delighted, 2% calmer, What are these things that we have as part of our cocoon that are giving us this beautiful treasure chest of just treasure that you cannot get in any other way. You can't go and buy this thing. You cannot go and buy the results of 5 hours of training kalari every day. You can't go and buy the results of doing a half an hour meditation every morning and evening. You can't go and buy the results of learning to be a patient, calm, well-adjusted person. Do you know what I mean? You can only get these things because we've every single day come to put a little bit more treasure in the treasure pot. And then at some moment, we've got so much treasure in there that then, of course, it's like, well, you can just have anything you want. And I feel like this is really how it works with life. Like, we're building up so much treasure, and then we become somebody that's able to hold a lot. And of course, we can talk about this, like everybody's talking about this thing of like nervous system, what's the word? No, I can't even think of it. Like nervous system capacity, nervous system training, nervous system, I like to call it nervous system resilience more than anything else. But the ability to have beautiful things in your life and not just accidentally destroy them because we're too impatient or because we're too careless or we're too busy or we're too rushed or we're too complacent or we can't give them the focus and attention that they need. And sometimes I think life is just desperate to give these things to us. Do you know what I mean? Like, to give us the type of partner that we're looking for, to give us the type of meaningful job or passion that we're looking for. But do we actually have the skill to hold it without breaking it and dropping it and damaging it? And so this is the practice of like, can we hold these precious things that life wants to give us? These things that we all say that we want. But it's like, a friend used this beautiful analogy the other day of like, you don't, and because I've been riding a motorbike here, and I learned slowly, you know, I have a very, very beautiful, cute, small motorbike, and I ride it pretty slowly around. I made it a rule to not ever be in a rush going anywhere on the motorbike. And I really want a Royal Enfield, but they're extremely heavy. They're they're very, very, very heavy. And they're very much more expensive and just much more fast and like, I guess, just comparatively more dangerous. And so it's like this thing of like, yeah, I shouldn't have a Royal Enfield yet. It's almost like not that I haven't earned it, but like, it would be dangerous. It would be more dangerous, you know? And it's like, you wouldn't give a child a motorbike, for example, but you would give them a bicycle. You trust people with the level of skill that they are currently at. And you don't expect people to be just brilliant at things that they haven't had any experience in. And life is exactly the same, I think. Like, we say that we want all of these amazing things, you know? You say that people in business say that they want like 50 clients, or people say that they want like to make all of this money, or people say that they want this specific type of partner, or they say that they want this specific type of house, they want a specific type of lifestyle. But it's like, do you actually have what it takes to have that thing and not completely destroy it, not completely just lose it completely, you know, like damage it completely, drop the ball completely? So I think the more that we can just show up and like get stronger and like do this practice of like training with 2 swords so that we can fight well with 1 sword, do this practice of like letting things be uncomfortable, letting things be challenging, letting things be difficult, and like just focusing on making one thing slightly better than it was yesterday. Each time I go into a different posture in the class, I'm just trying to like pull my knees a little bit more apart. I'm trying to keep my shoulders a little bit more open. I'm trying to stretch my spine a little bit more. Sometimes I forget those things. Sometimes I think, I should focus on my breath. And then I focus on my breath for a few things. Sometimes I focus on my feet on the floor and like how I'm gripping the floor and how my balance is, and not getting lazy with my footwork. And of course, like, I'm not skilled enough at the moment to hold all of those things in my awareness at the same time. I'm trying, and a lot of things in my life are making me better at that. My meditation practice, for example, is making me much better at that. The ability to focus on one point in class, focus on one thing, remember to improve one thing at a time and not just go through the whole thing. You could do the whole class completely mindlessly. I've done it before, for sure. You know what I mean? But I don't want to do that. I don't want to waste that time and that energy and that effort in the class, and the dedication of the teacher, and the respect to the practice itself. So I just think, what a beautiful thing. And every time I realize these things in the kalari practice, I just think like, wow, life must have so many cool things like waiting for all of us, waiting for us, that it's just waiting for us to get a little bit more observant, a little bit smarter, a little bit stronger, a little bit more flexible, a little bit more just optimistic, a little bit more hopeful, a little bit more skillful. And there's just many, many beautiful things just waiting for us there. But when we're safe people to learn them, you know what I mean? And it's so interesting because in all of the performances and things like this, it's so brilliant to watch people sparring that are much more proficient at the other weapons. And so for example, like we're learning the long stick, which the weapon above, like the next level weapon above the long stick is the spear. It's also long, but it has a very pointed, heavy metal object on the end. And the amount of times that I hit myself with my long stick in training is really, I hit myself so hard in the head today. I'm always hitting myself in the ankles. I'm always hitting myself in the back when I'm doing the forward and back one. I'm always dropping my long stick like in the class. And I was just laughing with a friend the other day, just saying like, thank goodness they're not spears, do you know what I mean? Because every time I hit myself in the head, I would actually cut my head open because it would be with a metal thing, not just a wooden stick that's like more or less inconsequential. And it's like, yeah, we're not safe people to be having the spear yet. We will be. Once we've done this a lot more, once we have a lot more awareness, a lot more proficiency, a lot more focus. So it's almost like lucky now that we don't have the long spears, because we'd be doing a lot of damage to ourselves and the other people in the class. We're just not that good yet, but we are getting better, and we will be going to the spears soon. So I just think, let's not be so impatient to get to where we want to go to. Get very good at the things that are right in front of you right now. If you're the kind of person that's going between 100 different things at once, stop doing that. Like, stop spending your energy in all of these places. Pick a few things and go deeply into those practices. Please let one of them be meditation, and let one of them be some sort of physical practice that you love, something that you're passionate about. Maybe it's salsa dancing, maybe it's capoeira, maybe it's karate, maybe it's rock climbing, maybe it's running, maybe it's Muay Thai, I don't know. I think martial arts and dancing are both completely brilliant because they involve so much movement of the spine. And the more alive your spine is, the more alive everything is. And you can talk about nervous system regulation and nervous system resilience until the cows come home. Your nervous system is inside your spine. So you can regulate yourself all you want with all of these other tools. If your spine is not extremely articulated and fluid and flexible and moving and strong, your nervous system can't do that much, you know? So pick up one or two practices, maybe something totally new that you've never tried before, and just dedicate the next year to it. You know what I mean? Create a cocoon around this thing. Do meditations along with it. Have a soundtrack to it. Organize your life around it, the way that you eat, the people that you're seeing, all of these things. Let yourself grow. Let yourself have some measuring sticks for your growth and get really good at something. And then life is going to give you some very, very, very extraordinary things. It's impossible that it couldn't be that way, you know? It's the only way it can be. So here's to your metamorphosis. Here's to your cocoon. If you need help with your cocoon, this is my complete area of expertise, my area of the most delight in my life at all. This is the things I do with my clients. This is the things I won't ever shut up about. So if you want help with your cocoon, with helping hold your cocoon, developing your cocoon, actually sticking to something long enough to understand yourself better, to become a powerful person that trusts their own gift and their own wisdom, just message me, you know where to find me. And yeah, I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful day. Make sure you get 1% better at least one thing in your day. Sending you so much love.